I'm Jeanette Keynes from Jewelry Arts Inc. This is the Roman Planished Chain earrings in Apricot 22k gold, part 5. I'm going to give you a progress report of what I've done so far, and I'm going to show you how we solder in between the links so that you get that beautiful row of 3 together. So here's a few close-ups, my progress report, if you will. I made some cute little apricot gold rosettes and fused them down to a little back sheet and trimmed them out. And basically they're going to be on the end of my little curtain rod that my chain is going to hang from. So here's a close-up of my little curtain rod. You see I soldered my little granular rosettes on the end. Of course, I covered them up with a bunch of ochre because I don't want that solder to reflow when I'm putting my nice link on top. And you see how like I made a link on top, and for stuff like that, basically you solder it shut, stretch it beautiful and round, and then cut off the seam so that you get that nice shape right there. And I soldered it right in the middle. And this is the little rod that my whole earring is going to hang from. So you can see the little end of my curtain rod has my little granular rosette, and that's basically what all the links hang from. I just wanted you to kind of be able to see how this all starts and fits together. Basically that central link fits exactly, well, hopefully exactly, through the center of my jump ring on top. And always remember, the key with these things, it's like nothing is ever perfect, but you just try to make it as beautiful as you can possibly manage. So here's just an extreme close-up. You see how I've got that little solder melted, basically forming a connection between the 2 links. Then I'm going to take my 3rd link and line it up just the same and add a little piece of solder and melt it in between. And that's essentially what keeps them all, you know, in a row and together. So you see how I lined up that 3rd link right next to the other 2 and hopefully nice and, you know, beautifully aligned. I'm going to place my solder there, and I'll do another little close-up so you can just see, you know, what's happening. So here's the close-up. So you see how I put a tiny little dot of flux and I put a piece of solder touching both links. Now, it's not that you want like a giant piece of solder, but on the other hand, it has to be big enough that it actually makes contact with both links, so that when it melts, it like draws down in between the 2 and connects them. You don't want it so tiny that it just kind of melts and makes a little blob on one of the links. I'm going to dry this a little tiny bit. I'll do maybe another quick close-up, and then we'll go ahead and solder. So now that I dried the flux, I think it's a tiny bit easier to see that you see the square of solder, or I guess it's a rectangle actually, and it's touching both sides of the link. I'm going to go in there probably with like a 00 tip, a pretty small tip, and heat both links. And my goal is to get the solder to melt down in between and make a connection between the 2, just like you see on the 2 links to the left. So just to show you some of my kibbles and bits here of my earrings, I've been showing you, you know, how to make the links and how to shape them. And where we left off at the end was basically the links are all opened up and pressed and press so that they'll sit open, which I guess that, okay, there you go. Because the way that you solder these into the mesh is that's why they're open like this, so that you can solder in between them. You place a piece of solder, I'm using the 20 karat apricot solder, by the way, and you put it right in between the links, and it has to be big enough of a piece that it's touching both sides so that when it melts, it forms an attachment. Since I just started doing this and soldered this one, so you can see that. This one is set up and ready to go. I've fluxed and dried, and I've got my piece of solder. And so you see, like, it's not an enormous piece of solder, but it's also not a micro piece. It needs to be big enough to touch both sides and sort of behave itself and make a decent attachment. Because this one is going to go over this cute little curtain rod, which of course I have the ends all ochred, so you don't get to see the pretty little granular rosette, but eventually you will. This one is all cleaned up. I did the other side already. See, like little curtain rods, so cute. So I'm going to go ahead and solder. And this stuff, it's not like hard to do, but it's definitely fiddly, because if the flux moves a little and the link moves, you just have to like pause and get it in the right position. So it's just fiddly. I guess that describes a lot of what we do here. Oh, hey, Valerie.
Hey.
Okay, so I already dried the flux, but if we're really lucky, it won't bubble up. But I always have my tweezers right here ready to go in case it moves. These things do like to move. There you go. Maybe I'll go a tiny bit more. Because that's all you're going for, is for that to melt. And I'll move out of the way so that Alexis can get a little close up there. And you also have to be very sure not to accidentally hit these with the flame. And that's why it's so important that you really open them up relatively wide. Because if you accidentally hit the edges, you'll melt them. And nobody wants that. So, and the thing of the way this works is that first you do it on the inside, and then it's going to get flipped, and that's going to end up on the front, and then you will put our little granule rosette or our little bezel on top, and I will show you that step when we get to it.